Let's sharpen a stone knife and test it. You've all seen me make various types of stone knives in the past. Different shapes, different functions. Here's that blade I made in a recent video, cutout blade. But how do we take that edge, use it, and then sharpen it? The process is pressure flaking. To pressure flake, you need something like an antler tine, copper nail, or even a steel nail. You also need some form of a hand pad. The pressure flaking tip is very important. As you see from here down to here, this tip is far more sharper compared to this one down here. The sharper, or even just the slightest dullest tip, is going to get you a finer edge when you're pressure flaking. Along with the hand pad, this protects your hand while you're driving off small micro flakes to readdress that edge and sharpen the blade. To sharpen any pressure flaker, especially an antler tine, any abrasive stone, you get the job done. Let's take this blade here, one solid piece, decent cutting edge with a wrapped handle. The longevity of these knives is really based on how much stone is from the handle all the way to the tip. So when you look at this stone from here all the way to the tip, I have about a ½ inch of stone. Doesn't mean once I start to remove all this stone down here from long-term usage that I can't use the rest of the stone, but just for the ergonomics of the knife, about this depth right here is about how much stone I have. I lightly abrade the edge, just one sweeping motion like this. To pressure flake this edge, I'm looking for just all the uneven spots on the stone. This is from usage, and this is just from sharpening the blade again and again and again. Take my pressure flaker, put it on that spot, pop. Micro, tiny little flakes. One side, then the other. This will keep your knife balanced. Once the blade is sharp, you're good to go. You should be able to run your finger over it and feel how sharp it is. The difference between a raw flake's edge and a stone blade's edge is simply this. This is more like a razor blade. This stone flake incisors and slices like a razor blade. The stone edge is more of a laceration. It's a jagged edge on whatever you're cutting. Now when it comes to meat or even something like wood, that's not a big deal. When you're coming to something like a leather, or you're trying to finally process something, it can pose some problems. This is the same method you used to make arrowheads, spear points, dart points. All it is pressure flaking. When we think of something like a stone flake based on that edge will slice right through. It's just like a razor blade. Use something like a stone blade, it's a little bit more of a sawing action. You can still slice, it will still cut, but a little bit more pressure is needed. Even to trim the fat, be easily done with a stone blade. Now a thinner blade compared to a thicker blade is going to go through the meat a little bit easier. But even cutting fat, so you want to cut your fat so you can render it down, you can still treat this blade the same way you would as a regular knife. Remember, warm meat is always easier to cut compared to cold meat, so if you're pulling a steak out of your fridge or you're opening up a deer, a stone blade on warm meat is going to be super easy. even when you get to the bone, follow that bone wherever it lies, you can still get through this guy. With relative ease. Both these blades have been used on meat. Let's use them on a fireboard. This is a hand drill friction fire hearth or baseboard. And I've already done a couple initial holes with a hand drill. This would be that phase where I need to cut that notch, as you see in this one right here, where I can allow that black dust to superheat through that friction, through that downward force, condense that notch, and then eventually blow it into a coal. Even with this blade that I haven't resharpened yet, I can create that notch. It's more of a sawing motion. Great thing with the stone blade, if you got that flat back, you can even flip it over and use it that way. I can get that notch right before center. That's even with the big blade like this. Now it's still sharp, but there's a lot more force coming down onto it. Little blade, same thing. And you got another good notch. Stone blade, super effective on cutting notches in fireboards. Now let's take a piece of rope. Standard rope, a little bit thicker than your average twine. You can definitely make some snares with it, do a ridge pull with it. This will cut on a raw flake very easy. Again, that raw flake is essentially that razor blade. And a few little swipes and it's cut. The stone blade requires a little bit more force. But you can't get through it. Now let's sharpen this guy up. Got that fresh edge. Couple pulls and slices with the knife, and you can definitely get through that rope. Yes, this clearly isn't a steel blade, but it's about understanding how this knife works and functions to the material it's made of. It's made of stone, it's going to cut differently. No matter how you use it, on wood processing, game processing, cordage making, you just have to remember this is a knife. If you need a chopping tool and you're using your knife, well, you should probably get an axe or a hatchet or tomahawk. A knife is used for simple tasks, pretty simple results. A few passes with the pressure flaker and I've got my knife back in action. So whether you're using a big blade like these or even a small little blade like this, these are tools for those simple tasks: cutting meat, processing cordage, working fireboard, shaping arrows and atlatls. These are very effective tools, and the easiest way to sharpen them is simply with the pressure flaker. Most of the blades that I carry when I head into the bush, I carry one or two of those little antler tines as pressure flakers. I'm not looking to do any large snapping. I'm just looking to readdress that edge, put a nice clean surface on it so I can cut through some meat, go about my day. Alright, that is how I sharpen a stone blade. Give it a little test. Get it back in action. Appreciate you watching.